When I picked up the phone to ask my son Max about his wedding date, I never expected the answer to come from my daughter-in-law, Lena. She looked me straight in the eyes with a cold, almost cruel smile and said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Those 4 words shattered something inside me. Special people. For 3 long years I had paid their rent every month, bought every piece of furniture in their home, filled their fridge, covered emergencies, and supported every whim they had. Yet I wasn't special enough to be at my own son's wedding. I stood there in my own living room, the phone suddenly feeling heavy in my hand, while Max avoided my eyes and Lena lounged comfortably on the sofa I had bought for them. In my closet hung the pale pink dress I had lovingly chosen for the wedding. $200 wasted. New shoes waiting to be worn. $1,000 set aside as a wedding gift. All dreams, all excitement, gone in seconds. Max cleared his throat and muttered, "Mom, it was intimate, just us and the witnesses." A lie, because I had already seen the photos online. Lena's parents smiling proudly next to the bride and groom, her siblings lifting champagne glasses, everyone celebrating except me, the woman who had financed most of their lives. 1 week later, Lena called again, this time with panic in her voice. "Renat, the rent is overdue. The landlord will kick us out. You forgot to send the transfer." Her voice trembled, desperate. But for the first time in years, I felt nothing. I simply said, "Lena, didn't I tell you I only help special people?" The silence that followed felt like justice. For the first time, she was the one trembling, not me. That night I cried, not out of sadness, but anger. Anger at myself for giving so much. $33,400. That was the total of what I had spent on them. My retirement savings, my husband's inheritance, my peace. All thrown away to people who saw me as nothing more than an ATM with a heartbeat. The next morning, something inside me changed. I felt awake, alive, determined. I went to the bank and canceled every automatic payment, every monthly rent, every shared access, every transfer. For the first time in years, my money was mine. Max and Lena called again and again. I turned off the phone. When I returned home later that day, 3 cars were parked outside my house. My stomach tightened. They still had keys. When I opened the door, I found Max on the sofa, Lena pacing frantically, and a lawyer, a stranger, going through my personal papers. Max looked up. "Mom, why did you cancel everything? We're worried about your mental health." Lena added with fake sweetness, "At your age, confusion is normal. We just want to help." Their lawyer stepped forward and calmly said they were there to assess your decision-making ability. In other words, to take control of my money. I answered with a clarity they didn't expect. I am not confused. I am finally thinking clearly. And all 3 of you are leaving my house, now. Max tried to argue. Lena pretended to cry. The lawyer tried to intimidate me with legal threats. But I stood tall and threw their power of attorney papers into the trash. "Leave," I said. "And the next time you speak to a lawyer, use your own money." As they walked out, Max turned one last time. "Mom, you'll regret this. You'll end up alone." I replied, "Max, I've been alone for years. The only difference is that now, it's by choice." After they left, I felt peace. A deep, liberating silence. The kind of silence that feels like freedom. The next morning, I went to an attorney of my own, Mr. Weber, an expert in elder financial protection. He listened carefully and said, "What your children attempted is elder financial abuse, and entering your home without permission is also a legal violation." He helped me change my will, document all abuse, protect my accounts, secure my home. I changed all the locks,
Installed security cameras, opened a new bank account, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I spent money on myself. A full day at the beauty salon, a walk in the park, coffee with a neighbor who genuinely cared. For the first time in a very long time, I remembered what it felt like to be a person, not a wallet. And as I sit here today telling you this story, I want every mother, every father, every grandparent listening to remember this. Love is not measured in money. Sacrifice should not be repaid with humiliation. And no matter your age, you have the right to keep your dignity. Because sometimes, walking away isn't losing your family. It's finding yourself again. Minutes later, Mr. Weber and 2 police patrol cars arrived. I watched the officers talk to Max and Lena, saw my son gesticulate angrily, saw Lena crying again, but this time her tears did not move me. One of the officers approached my car. "Ma'am, you can get out safely. Your visitors are going to leave immediately." As I got out of the car, Max shouted at me from the street, "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." "Max," I replied with a calm that surprised even me, "family doesn't threaten lawsuits for mental incompetence. Family doesn't break into people's homes without permission. Family doesn't treat their mothers like ATNs." Lena screamed from across the street, "You're going to pay us everything you owe us. We have bills you co-signed for. You can't just abandon us like this." Mr. Weber interjected, "Mrs. Brooks, any future communication must be through my office, and I suggest you consult with an attorney before making collection threats, because my client has full documentation of all the payments she voluntarily made for 3 years." I watched them drive away in their cars, defeated but not giving up. I knew this wasn't over, but for the first time in this situation, I felt confident. I had professional help, I had emotional support from Eleanor, and more importantly, I had mental clarity about what was right and what was wrong. That night, Eleanor invited me to her house for dinner. I met her daughter, who was visiting, and I was able to see with my own eyes what a healthy family relationship looked like. They spoke respectfully to each other, asked sincerely about each other's lives, and laughed together. The daughter didn't ask for money once the entire evening. "I wanted that with Max, too," I confessed to Eleanor after her daughter had left. "And maybe you'll get it one day," she replied. "But first, he has to learn that you are a person who deserves respect, not just a source of income." For the first time in weeks, I went to bed feeling hopeful about the future. The next few days were strangely peaceful. The surveillance cameras showed me that Max and Lena were driving past my house several times a day, sometimes slowly, sometimes they parked for a few minutes, but without getting out. It was as if they were studying my routine, looking for the perfect moment for their next move. Mr. Weber had advised me to document every one of these visits, so I kept a detailed log with the date and time. "Their persistence will work in our favor," he had said. "Every time they show up after we've told them not to approach, it strengthens our case for a permanent restraining order." On Friday morning, I was calmly having breakfast when the doorbell rang. The cameras showed me a very well-dressed young woman with a folder in her hands and a professional smile. I didn't recognize her, but something about her posture told me it was not a social visit. "Good morning, Mrs. Renati Richter," she said as I opened the door. "I am a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We have received a report that you may be an A-risk situation, and we need to conduct a wellness check." My blood ran cold. Max and Lena had escalated the situation. It was no longer just threats from private lawyers. Now they had involved the government. "Can I see your ID?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Of course." She showed me an official ID that looked genuine. "I am social worker Mrs. Schmidt. Can I come in and talk to you?" I let her in, knowing that a refusal would have been worse for my case. Mrs. Schmidt sat down in my living room and took out a form. Mrs. Richter, we have received reports that you have shown significant changes in your financial behavior, that you have cut off communication with your family, and that you have shown signs of paranoia by installing unnecessary security systems. We were also told that you have refused medical and legal help from your loved ones. Every word had been carefully chosen to make me sound like a mentally disturbed old woman. I recognized Lena's handwriting in the wording. She had always been skilled at manipulating words to get what she wanted. "Miss Schmidt," I said with all the dignity I could muster, "I would like to call my lawyer before answering any questions." "Ma'am, this is not a legal interrogation. It's a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, it should not be a problem to speak with me." The phrase, "if you have nothing to hide," infuriated me. It was the same logic abusers used to justify their invasions of other people's privacy. "Miss, I'm calling my lawyer. You can wait here or come back another day, but I will not answer any questions without legal representation present." I called Mr. Weber, and he was there within 20 minutes. When he came in and saw the social worker, his expression hardened. "Miss Schmidt," he said after checking her ID, "I hope you have a court order to be here, because my client is under my legal representation, and any unauthorized investigation constitutes harassment." "Sir," Mrs. Schmidt replied with less confidence than before, "we have reports from concerned family members about the lady's well-being. It's our duty to investigate." "What family?" Mr. Weber asked dryly. "The same family that tried to get her to sign a power of attorney without representation. The same family that broke into her house without permission and checked her private documents. The same family that excluded her from important events while living off her money." Mr. Weber took a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. "Here I have complete documentation of my client's financial and emotional abuse. $33,400 that were withdrawn from her accounts in 3 years. Systematic social exclusion and emotional blackmail. If someone needs to be investigated here, it is not my client." Mrs. Schmidt reviewed the documents with growing discomfort. It was obvious that the information she had been given did not match the reality she had in front of her. "Mrs. Richter," she said finally, "can you explain to me why you so abruptly stopped financial support for your son?" "Because I finally discovered they were using me. Because I realized that to them I wasn't a mother, but a bank account. Because I was tired of financing the lives of people who saw me as an obstacle." "But don't you feel it's your responsibility to help your family?" The question outraged me. "Miss Schmidt, my responsibility as a mother was to raise my son until he was 18 years old, to educate him, and to give him the tools to be an independent adult. My son is 35 years old, married, and perfectly capable of supporting himself. Financing his adult life is not my responsibility. It is my choice, and I have chosen not to do so anymore." Mr. Weber interjected. "Miss Schmidt, would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old adult to be unable to pay his own rent without the help of his 71-year-old mother?" Mrs. Schmidt did not answer right away. I could see she was reevaluating the entire situation. "Mrs. Richter," she asked after a moment, "do you manage your finances completely? I can show you my bank statements, my investments, my tax payments. Everything is current and in order. Do you live independently? As you can see, I keep my house clean, I take care of myself physically, I drive my own car, I have healthy social relationships with my neighbors. Do you take any medication?" "Just vitamins and occasionally aspirin. I don't have any medical conditions that require medication." Mr. Weber added, "My client has just undergone extensive medical exams as part of our legal process. She is in perfect mental and physical condition." Mrs. Schmidt closed her folder. "Mrs. Ritter, based on this conversation and the documentation I have reviewed, I see no indication that you are at risk or in need of intervention. I will close this case." After she left, Mr. Weber and I remained silent for a few minutes. "Renata," he said finally, "this is going to continue to escalate. Max and Lena are spending money they don't have to hire professionals to try to have you declared incompetent." "Does that mean they're desperate?" It means exactly that. What else can they do? They can file a lawsuit for incompetence. It's expensive and hard to win, but if they find a sympathetic judge and a psychiatrist willing to testify in their favor, they could get a guardian assigned. The thought terrified me. They could take control of my money? They could try, but we have solid evidence that you're completely competent and that they are motivated by greed and not by genuine concern. That afternoon, I called Diana to vent. "Sister," she said after hearing my story, "do you notice how far they are willing to go for money? They're spending money on lawyers and doctors, destroying their own reputation, all to get access to your bank account again." Her words made me think. Max and Lena had completely revealed their true nature. There was no going back. There was no possibility of a genuine reconciliation. To them, I had never been a mother or a respected mother-in-law. I had always just been money on legs. This revelation, although painful, was also liberating. I no longer had to wonder if I was making the right decision. I no longer had to feel guilty for protecting myself. They had proven for themselves that my emotional and